For almost the entirety of NBA history, the MVP voting has followed a very specific formula that they very rarely diverge from. For one, you need to be on an elite winning team. Number two, you have to have really nice stats, but not necessarily the best stats as long as you're winning a lot. And number three, you have to have a nice story to the season. Specifically, to really emphasize how important winning is to the formula, listen to this. In the past 30 years of NBA basketball, every single MVP winner has finished in the standings as a top 2 team in his conference, with the exception of one, which was Russell Westbrook in 2017, who was the first player to average a triple-double since 1962. So unless you can do something that's so incredibly historic that it breaks the formula, you're not winning MVP unless your team is an elite winning team. But is this fair? Is this really the most accurate way to gauge a player's value? Many people don't think so, and think that the award too strongly favors players on elite teams rather than who's honestly the best player or the most valuable player in a literal sense. So what if we said screw the formula, and instead just gave the award to the player who was literally that season's best player? Well, things would change up quite a bit. The decade we're looking at in this video is the 1980s, and let me know in a comment if you agree or disagree with these choices. In 1980, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar won the MVP award, and he's keeping the award ahead of the likes of Julius Erving and George Gervin. The captain led the Lakers to a 62-20 record, which was the best record in the entire league. But this wasn't just a case of giving the award to the best player on the best team, but a 33-year-old Kareem was still legitimately the league's best overall player. This was far from his prime years, but Kareem still controlled the game in many ways, as he averaged 24.8 points, 10.8 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and 3.4 blocks on a remarkable 60.4% shooting. His 3.4 blocks led the league that season, as his elite rim protection earned him a first-team All-Defense appearance, and if the Defensive Player of the Year award had existed at that point, he may have won that award as well. Now it's worth noting that George the Iceman Gervin finished third in the actual MVP voting with averages of 33.1 points, 5.2 rebounds, 2.6 assists, and 1.4 steals on 52.8% shooting. Despite efficiently leading the league in scoring as a shooting guard, he didn't get more MVP consideration since his Spurs finished with only a 41-41 record. Although I think this season deserves some attention, the Iceman was known primarily as a one-sided player who was without question one of the greatest scorers of all time, but was far from an elite defensive player. So ultimately, I have to give the edge to Kareem, who didn't have a weak spot in his game on either side of the court. In 1981, Julius Erving was the league MVP winner, and now he loses the award to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. This was one of the closest MVP races in NBA history between Julius Erving and Larry Bird, as both stars led their teams to 62-win seasons, and both small forwards put up really nice numbers as well, but the player who dominated on both ends was once again the captain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who put up averages of 26.2 points, 10.3 rebounds, 3.4 assists, and 2.9 blocks on 57.4% shooting. Despite being 34 years old, Kareem was still the most overall dominant player in the league, as he was the best defender at his position, making first-team All-Defense. He also led the league in win shares and in player efficiency rating. If playoffs were included in the formula, then Bird's championship run likely earns him the title of best player. But since it's just the regular season, Kareem takes a strong grasp on this one. In 1982, Moses Malone won the MVP award, and he's keeping the award as he was clearly that season's most dominant force. Now, many stars had best player caliber seasons, like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, George Gervin, and Adrian Dantley. But for one reason or another, Moses has continuously been overlooked among the all-time greats, despite the fact that he was legitimately the league's best player for a small stretch in the 80s. Moses put up monstrous numbers of 31.1 points, 14.7 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks on 52% shooting. Despite his Rockets only winning 46 games this season, Moses still ran away with the award because he was the clear catalyst for every bit of success that team had. To give you an idea of how impressive his 31 points and 14 rebounds were, in the 38 seasons since this year, no one has ever eclipsed both of those averages in a season. Moses wasn't just great at rebounding the basketball, but more specifically, he was arguably the greatest of all time at offensive rebounds. Moses averaged 6.9 offensive rebounds this year. No one else in the history of the NBA has ever officially averaged as many offensive rebounds as Moses did this season. That's a ton of second chance opportunities to consistently provide for your team, and was one of the major reasons why they were so successful. Overall, Moses led the league in rebounds, win shares, and player efficiency rating. Definitely an underrated MVP season from arguably the most underrated big man in NBA history. In 1983, Moses Malone was named the league's MVP, and he's keeping the award for the second straight season. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson each had best player caliber seasons, as Magic averaged about 17, 10, and 8 on 55% shooting, while Bird put up around 23, 11, and 6 on 50% shooting. But with that being said, they still weren't quite ready to take the title of best player in the league, because Moses was still in his prime and had his sights set on a championship. For the actual MVP voting, the 27-year-old Malone earned 69 out of the 75 first-place votes. It wasn't even close, as he and the 76ers dominated in every single aspect. They finished the regular season with a 65-17 record on their way to the NBA championship. But even outside of the team's success, Moses dominated individually on an all-time great level, as he put up 24.5 points, 15.3 rebounds, and 2 blocks on 50% shooting. Once again, no one has eclipsed both of his 24 points and 15 rebound averages in the same season since he accomplished it in 1983. On top of all of that, he was also the league's best defender at the center position, as he made first team all-defense. In 1984, Larry Bird was the league MVP, but on this new list, he loses the award to Magic Johnson. Now, if the playoffs were factored in, then Larry would be keeping the award without question, as his Celtics won the championship and Magic Johnson disappointed in the clutch situations. But when only considering the regular season for the title of best player, this is one of Magic's strongest cases over Bird, as Magic averaged 17.3 points, 13.1 assists, 7.3 rebounds, and 2.2 steals on a career-best 56.5% shooting, which is incredibly efficient by point guard standards. His 13.1 assists was also his career best. Bird, on the other hand, put up 24.2 points, 10.1 rebounds, 6.6 assists, and 1.8 steals on 49.2% shooting. Whenever it comes to these great icons of the 80s, we're always forced to split hairs. But one of the major reasons I gave the edge to Magic this season, for one, is because of Magic's incredible efficiency this year. But the second reason was because of Larry's unusual lack of efficiency from the perimeter. For his career, Bird was known as one of the greatest shooters of all time, but this season specifically was one of his worst in that area, as he couldn't quite find the shooting touch throughout the entirety of the regular season. On the year, he shot only 24.7% from three-point range, which is atrocious by his standards, and was even less than the league's average. With all of these things considered, I think Magic comfortably takes the award in 1984. In 1985, Larry Bird won the MVP award, and he's keeping the award as he was just entering the prime years of his individual career. 1985 had a jam-packed group of stars who were competing for the title of Best Player, which included great individual seasons from a rookie Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, Bernard King, and Moses Malone. With that being said, this explanation will be quick, because during that regular season, Larry was performing at a level clearly above the rest of them, as he averaged 28.7 points, 10.5 rebounds, 6.6 assists, 1.6 steals, and 1.2 blocks on 52.2% shooting. There wasn't an area in his game where he was lacking. Larry also looked more like himself from the perimeter this season, as he shot a lethal 42.7% from three-point range and 88.2% from the free throw line. Whether it was his traditional stats, the eye test, or advanced analytics, Larry stood out among the crowd as he led the league in win shares, player efficiency rating, and plus-minus. In 1986, Larry Bird won his third actual MVP award, and on this new list, he's keeping the award. When we look at the legends of the 1980s, it can be easy to just see Bird as one of the stars in the mix. But what many people forget is that from a production standpoint, for a while, he was clearly the best player in the league. He's an underrated defender, as he actually made several all-defense team appearances throughout his career, and offensively, he could do it all. And this year was no exception, as he averaged 25.8 points, 9.8 rebounds, 6.8 assists, and 2 steals on 49.6% shooting. Even the years where Bird didn't have 50-40-90 percentages, he was still very close to doing so, as he shot 42.3% from three-point range and 89.6% from the free throw line this season. Once again, he dominated the analytics as he was first in player efficiency rating, win shares, and plus-minus. Dominique Wilkins' solid season of 30 points and 8 rebound averages definitely deserves some acknowledgement, but he was certainly less efficient than Bird all around, as well as being a much weaker defensive player. Magic also had himself a typical impressive Magic Johnson season, but Bird was simply on another level this year. In 1987, Magic Johnson won the league MVP, but now he loses the award to Michael Jordan. This was by far the most difficult year for me to make my choice, because it was a tight three-man race between three of the greatest players of all time, Magic, Bird, and Jordan. Based on the NBA's actual MVP formula, it was only fitting to give the award to Magic, whose Lakers had by far the best record in the entire league at 65 wins and 17 losses. They also bolstered the best offense in the game, which was orchestrated by Magic himself. But when you take team success out of the equation and simply look at it on an individual level, then things start to get really cloudy this season. Magic averaged 23.9 points, 12.2 assists, 6.3 rebounds, and 1.7 steals on 52% shooting. He was such a unique combination of lethal facilitating and scoring this season. Nobody in the history of the NBA other than Magic Johnson has ever averaged as many points per game while averaging at least 12 assists per game. There's many reasons why people consider this guy the greatest point guard of all time that go way beyond just the championships. Then you have Larry Bird, who put up 28.1 points, 9.2 rebounds, 7.6 assists, and 1.8 steals on 52.5% shooting. Not only was Bird lethal as a legitimate scorer, rebounder, facilitator, and an underrated defender, but he was historically efficient while doing it, as he had his first of two straight 50-40-90 seasons, putting up percentages of 52% from the field, 40% from three, and 91% from the free throw line. With numbers and skills like this, while leading his team to 59 wins, this is certainly one of the greatest seasons of all time from a player who didn't win the MVP award. Lastly, there's Michael Jordan, who barely earns my selection this year as the best player, as he averaged 37.1 points, 5.2 rebounds, 4.6 assists, 2.9 steals, and 1.5 blocks in what was the highest scoring season of all time by anyone not named Wilt Chamberlain. Jordan had one stretch where he scored at least 40 points in 9 straight games, which is tied for the longest streak in NBA history with Kobe, once again by anyone not named Wilt Chamberlain. Part of the reason Jordan gets the edge over the other two greats is not just because he was a force on the offensive end, but also because he was a force on the defensive end. Jordan's lockdown reputation was building quickly at this point, as he was second in the league in steals and first in the league among guards in blocked shots. By most major analytics, Jordan holds the edge as well, as he was first in player efficiency rating, first in plus-minus, first in win shares, and fourth in defensive win shares ahead of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. I had to split hairs to make the choice this season, so I'm curious to hear who you would pick in 1987. Honorable mention this year goes to Kevin the Torture Chamber McHale, who averaged 26.1 points, 9.9 rebounds, and 2.2 blocks on 60.4% shooting and 83.6% from the free throw line, making him the first player to ever shoot at least 60% from the field and 80% from the free throw line in the same season. In 1988, Michael Jordan won the MVP, and he's definitely keeping the award. In this season, several players had an incredible year that would usually be good enough to earn the title of Best Player that season. Among them were especially Larry Bird, then Magic Johnson, and Charles Barkley. But the reason Jordan keeps it isn't simply because he had a great MVP season, but on an individual level, he had arguably the greatest MVP season of all time, as he averaged 35 points, 5.5 rebounds, 5.9 assists, 3.2 steals, and 1.6 blocks on 53.5% shooting. He dominated pretty much every aspect of the game, and he was extremely efficient while doing it. Not only was he the MVP, but he was also named that season's Defensive Player of the Year, which only him and Olajuwon have achieved both awards in the same season. He was first in scoring, first in steals, first in blocks among guards, first in field goal percentage among shooting guards, first in true shooting percentage among shooting guards, first in win shares, first in player efficiency rating, and first in plus-minus. I think you get the point. Jordan made the selection this season the easiest of the decade. In 1989, Magic Johnson won the MVP, and now he loses the award to Michael Jordan. In the actual MVP voting, this was an extremely close race between the two greats, but as usual, the player with the better team record won the award. Magic put up 22.5 points, 12.8 assists, 7.9 rebounds, and 1.8 steals on 51% shooting. And from a team perspective, you could certainly argue that his impact, influence, and leadership deserve the award. Jordan, on the other hand, put up 32.5 points, 8 assists, 8 rebounds, and 2.9 steals on 53.8% shooting. Not only do Jordan's offensive stats appear to have the edge, but he was also clearly the better defensive player, as Jordan was once again first team all-defense, which is something that Magic never accomplished in his career. In the second half of the regular season, Doug Collins moved Jordan to the point guard position. During that time as the point guard, Jordan had a streak where he had 7 straight triple-doubles and 10 triple-doubles in 11 games. In those final 24 games as the point guard, Jordan averaged over 30 points, over 9 rebounds, and over 10 assists, all while being efficient on offense and dominant on defense. On the year, he was first in win shares, first in player efficiency rating, and first in plus minus. As amazing as Magic was, sometimes it's just nearly impossible to compete with Jordan on an individual basis. Here's a quick recap of who originally won the award and who wins under this new format. Do you agree with the list? Let me know in the comments section which ones you think I got right and which ones you think I got wrong. Thanks for watching as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.